Hey, friends, on this episode of the Youth Ministry Sherpa's Coast to Coast podcast. Now that the election is over, we will never have to deal with politics ever again, right? Okay, we're not that naive. On today's show, Shannon and I talk about how to help our students and ourselves elevate our perspective above American politics to what God is doing in the world. One of our responsibilities as youth workers is to help our students develop empathy, understanding, and a vision beyond our own circumstances. It's not easy, and Brock wasn't here to help us, but we hope it's helpful for you. So, roll down the windows and let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to the Youth Ministry Sherpa's Coast to Coast podcast. I'm Steve Anderson. I'm joined today by Shannon Dunn. Hey Shannon.
Hey Steve, how's it going?
Good. We are without our friend and partner Brock Morgan today because he's mostly inaccessible.
That guy's schedule, man. He's always speaking somewhere, leading somewhere.
He's just too famous and too popular for us.
I know. How do we even get him on this podcast?
I don't know. But yeah, we miss you, Brock. Hope your heart is doing okay. So I'm really sad today, Shannon, because we should be together in person.
I know. Week. That's true.
It's killing me, to be honest.
Me too. I kind of forgot, but yesterday I was kind of spinning about it, actually. Yeah. The DYM conference, we should have been there.
Should have been there. I think I've been there 3 out of the last 4 years. And
yeah.
I've looked forward to it. I couldn't go this year due to some budget issues at our church. And I'm watching Facebook and Instagram, and I'm like excited for people.
I know.
It's great.
Kind of envious.
At the same time, I'm like, dang it. It makes me mad. But good news is, Shannon, we are there in spirit and in stickers.
In stickers, that's right. That's right.
I mailed Josh Griffin a bunch of stickers. I had like a pile from the podcast from like 5 years ago, so I sent him pretty much everything I had.
That's amazing.
And I've gotten a couple of texts from guys that have received them. So hey, at least we're there in some sense, right?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I was telling someone, like, it's just one of the best conferences for my heart, for my soul, and for my brain too.
I know. I could have really used it this year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, we decided to get together anyway, even though we're not able to meet in person, even though Brock's not able to join us. We thought we should get an episode recorded and get it out there. And, Shannon, it has been this is a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
It's been exactly 9 days since the election.
That's right.
So now that the election is over, we will never have to talk or think about politics ever again.
Right. It's just
doesn't
done.
That feel great?
It feels great. It was like just a blip, and now our lives aren't affected by it.
The political texts have stopped. Oh. I haven't gotten one in like 4 days.
Wait, have you really not?
No, I haven't.
I guess you're right. I haven't got a text. I still got an email the other day. Then I was like, aren't we done with this?
Oh, yeah. No, I say that tongue in cheek because, of course, we're going to keep having to talk about it as a country, as a culture, as a society. And so, what we thought we'd talk about today, and I hope we're not beating this dead horse into oblivion, but just the idea of how do we continue to deal and talk about the polarization, the political polarization in our country with our students.
Yeah.
In a way that's helpful, in a way that gives them some hope and perspective and helps them to be followers of Jesus, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like the one question. I'm in a few different text chains from different cohorts and stuff I've been a part of. And that's like the one question that came up in this last week, like looking for advice is like, do I even address it at all?
Right.
The election and what's going on. And if I do, how? Like that's, it's a big challenge. It's a challenge to talk about with friends. So, and you might know how they feel or where they lean or what their views are, and it's still hard to talk about. So how do you talk about it with a group of students who are all over the map?
Yeah. It's interesting, you're in California, we're in Maryland, and we're in blue states. Probably most of our listeners are in red states. There's more red states than blue states. And so even the way that we probably think about it and are able to talk about it varies greatly from place to place, church to church.
Yeah.
And so, I think what we're going to try to say today isn't going to be like the all answer inclusive genius response. It's just
do we ever give that? Is that ever what we say?
I don't think we do. But anyway, I want to share just some things that I did these past few weeks that I thought were good. I don't know how they're landing, but they've been inspiring to me. So I don't know, maybe even though it's after the fact, maybe it's a little bit of a roadmap forward. So
can I ask you a pre-question, Steve?
Yeah.
Because you've been in youth ministry a long time. Did you because that just happened to me before, where the election or some kind of political event comes up and I'm blindsided by it, sort of. I didn't pre-plan for the conversation, the turmoil. So did you, you've been in ministry a long time. You've been for multiple presidential elections. So did you kind of really have a good lead up and planning process to know, what you wanted to do and how you wanted to address it? Or did it come by surprise to you? Be honest.
Yes and that. Yes and yes. Or no and no. I don't think I've really ever addressed it with students. It's not a common topic of conversation. Obviously is, in the church and among the staff and pastors and stuff. But we don't spend a lot of time talking about it with the students. And honestly, they don't bring it up a ton, at least in our conversations. Yeah. But I did feel compelled, because we meet on Sunday nights, our high school. And I felt compelled the Sunday night before the election to just say something, because I think there was just a lot of anxiety for people, no matter what their beliefs, which party they might lean towards. And so, and I told them, I think this is because both parties were painting this particular election as if we win, it's conquering. If we lose, it is literally the end of the world. It's this apocalyptic decision. Yeah. And so I wanted to talk the students back from that to some extent. And so I prepared a little statement. So,
share what you did.
Yeah. So I shared 3 points. I said, first of all, the Bible doesn't talk about America. Because I've seen YouTube videos, this is all prophesied, and, read the book of Daniel carefully and you'll find out who's going to win this election. And I mean, all of that to me is just nonsense and really poor reading of scripture. And so I said, the Bible is not about America. It was written to all people for all time. And so if anyone tells you it's predicting this or that in the 21st century in the United States, they are simply misguided or intentionally deceiving you. The second thing I said was that God cares about politics, but he cares more about people. I think we could all agree on that. And the third thing I said was that the election isn't the most important thing happening in our country this week. That it's not the most important thing happening in the world this week, even though it feels like it. That the story of the world is the story of the church. And what the church is doing and will continue to do daily is the most important thing. Yeah. Whether it's people coming to Jesus, getting baptized, serving the poor, planting churches, that's the story God is writing. This is bigger than the story of American politics, and that's the most important thing happening. And so to kind of build off that, we're doing a series on kind of a mission series where we're talking about what God is doing around the world. And I've been blessed to have former students who happen to be passing through town who are doing missions work each of the last 2 weeks. I had a student who's a teacher in Honduras. She married a guy from Honduras that she met on one of our mission trips when she was an
Oh my
intern.
gosh, that's a cool story.
Yeah, she works in Honduras. They were home visiting family, and just them telling us about their work in Honduras. Among some, they are helping kids graduate from high school. 1 in 100,000 kids in Honduras graduates from high school.
Mm.
Is that crazy? And then this past week, I had a former student who just spent the past 2 years on the Mercy ship off the coast of Africa. She's a nurse.
I know someone who's done that too.
Oh, it is
I
the
bet
most.
they know each
They
other.
probably do. We'll have to get their names.
Mhm.
She's just doing gospel work, loving people and restoring dignity in lives.
Yeah.
And she graduated in 2015. And she was in town.
That's cool.
So we're doing those things. I have some more stuff planned for the next couple of weeks. And just like, guys, this country is wonderful and great. And there's so much we need to learn to handle in the midst of our lives here. But there's more in the world than that.
Yes.
And that gives us perspective. So
yes. I mean, you said this to me when we briefly texted about it, but this is sort of the way to disrupt, right? Like their thinking and to shift perspective. And I mean, we know adolescents are so me, right? And then add on a culture that's saying like America, 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 or whatever, and so it's like, I love that you're kind of doing this in a way that you're not shaming the fact that those two things are real and of value for their lives. And yet, like you said, and yet also going on, and also biblically, there is so much more, and our perspective can be so much wider and bigger in Jesus.
I'm teaching myself too.
Yeah.
So much of my own attention is given to that kind of stuff, and I need to be reminded of the same thing. I just think in general, we haven't discipled ourselves well or discipled our people well in terms of big perspective of what God is doing in the world. And that's part of why everybody is so polarized in our country and even in churches, because we think it's all about this time and this party and these people. And oh my gosh, I just need that. Like, I need that slap in the face of there's more happening in the world than this. This isn't the story of God.
Yes. Do you follow Rich Viotis on Instagram at all?
I do, yeah.
His just words, I feel like, always come and hit right at the core of like unity, and how, and love, like you said, your second point, like Jesus loves people more than politics. And I just think that he's able to really bring it back to that without saying that it's not important, because that's the balance, right?
Yeah.
Of not ignoring and not thinking that it's not an important conversation, and yet loving people is more important.
Don't you get a sense, we talked about the disruptive nature of youth ministry. Don't you get a sense that this generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, is just ready to be challenged to live a different kind of Christian, biblical, gospel, Jesus-centered life in this world?
Yes. And why I think that actually is because they're so much more engaged politically. I think. I really think this generation feels like, I don't know, but I didn't think about politics in high school, and I didn't feel that. I think they feel it, and I think it adds to their anxiety.
I agree.
Not every kid and not every area, but generally more so than past generations. I think that they do. And I think and because of that, I think they are open, ready, and seeking new answers, right? Like, I think they see more than anyone, like, the division and the polarization, and they think like, what is wrong with the adults? And so, right?
Definitely.
They have to be thinking, what is wrong with the adults running this country? um, but yeah, so I do. I think that because of that and other reasons, but I think that leaves them prime and open and looking for new perspectives and new ways. And how can Christianity, how can youth ministry disrupt that?
Yeah. So, other than me talking, what are ways
Mm.
that we can disrupt that for our
Mm.
kids?
You know, my go-to when people ask me like if I'm going to talk about it, or my first thought is like stay curious. Like it's
Mm,
more about I'm very relational when it comes to ministry, right? So like I don't go immediately to what's the talk I'm going to give from stage, but I go like how am I going to handle the individual kid? That's just my own
mm,
personal brain. I'm not saying one of them is wrong or right. That's just what my brain goes. And so I think we get to represent the way to live with different views and not have conflict. And I think we get to
mm.
model that, because I definitely am not going to have the same political views of every kid or parent in my
Right,
youth group,
right.
which is so funny. I avoid those conversations completely, but to hear my 8-year-olds come home and talk about what they talk about in the classroom, oh man, it's
Yeah.
the funniest things they say. Like this is my favorite one, was like, so and so's parent, my friend so and so really is on the side of Trump. Actually, my daughter thinks his name is Trump, which
Sure.
really just makes it giggle. She just pronounces it different and wrong every time, but she'll say because she saw him singing a Taylor Swift song. Like it's just the
Oh my gosh.
reasoning. It's
There
just
you go.
hilarious. If you want to let go of this, the polarization and the anger behind all of it, just have conversations with 8-year-olds and see what their reasons for which president they're voting for.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's great. But I just think, thinking of the individual is like stay curious. And then as you're staying curious to why they feel the way they feel, why they believe the way they believe, why they're voting the way they vote, um, in that I think gives you the ability to also coach them or chat with them about the questions, like, right? Like lead them towards the questions they should be asking, like, what do you think Jesus, thinks about this? If Jesus
Yeah.
was here, what would, not who would he vote for? I know that's not the question I'm saying to ask, tell them to ask, but just, what's important? What's important if Jesus was here? What would he think? I don't know. So just helping you staying curious and then guiding them to continue to stay curious, I think, um, helps them develop. I think that's like the key is like, how are we developing humans who are
Mm.
able to engage conflict, conversations, believing something different from other people, and that not being the end of our world, or, you know, even saying that one doesn't believe in Jesus because they believe one way or whatever. It's like, how do we get along and helping them go there?
Yeah, and the challenge of that as a pastor of people with a wide swath of beliefs and positions is asking those questions of students without feeling like you are either counteracting what their parents believe or
Mm-hmm.
what they've grown up believing,
Mm-hmm.
like being disruptive without being disrespectful,
Yes.
but to get them to think. I think that's like the touchy center point that I'm looking for, and it's very tricky.
Yeah.
It's
It's
very tricky.
it's nuanced.
Yeah, because
Yes.
you're gonna have some people who are just, well, he just said that because he thinks this particular side, and I try so delicately to balance that and not have that be
Mm-hmm.
my end game. I'm just
Right.
trying to get them to think beyond the current culture, the current climate, to what God might have going on.
Right.
So,
Right. And I think so in that, as you said that, I think one other way, uh, and I say this from my own small group that happened last night, is like, let's talk about heaven.
there you go.
It's like
There you go.
you want to disrupt our thoughts on right now. Let's talk about how kind of honestly it doesn't it matters, but it's not everything. Because guess what? In heaven, I don't think there's going to be political elections. I just don't, and we were going through the book Relaxed by Megan Fate Marshman in our small group, and she made this giant list of things that heaven won't have. We always try to think about heaven, what heaven will have. And I was like, yeah, that's beautiful. Like that disrupts my anxiety to think about that, like that our end game is heaven. And of course, I believe that God and Jesus believe, like we can bring heaven on earth and we can experience some of that now. But in the end, like it's going to be okay. And that's personally disruptive. So I gotta think that that's another way we can disrupt it. So, world perspective and heaven perspective.
Yeah. And I think that takes a certain exposure to things, to people, to experiences. Most youth ministries have some kind of mission experience or service experience built in, and I think that's really, really important. We have those experiences, and those are potentially really life changing. Like nothing builds your vision of the world more than visiting other parts of the world,
right,
and seeing what's happening there.
Right.
But I think and we do that, but I think I want to do a better job of bringing some of that here more often.
Yeah. And I think what I love is what you're saying is like, it doesn't have to just be about going. They can see, hearing people's stories can change their lives too. So bringing in other stories and sharing more regularly than just saying, oh, well, we get a world perspective from the one time that we do a mission trip once a year. You can ingrain that more regularly in your conversations.
Yeah, because those one-time experiences are great, but they're not enough. They're not sustainable. Yeah. So, but they've affected some people enough to go off and serve the Lord in other countries, and then I can bring them back, and they can talk more about it and inspire the next generation to do that too. So yeah.
This is shifting the topic a tiny bit. Sorry.
That's okay.
I mean, same topic, but just that you kind of said to me, and you said on the, like, I hope we're not beating a dead horse, but I just think that this conversation is important to have throughout the year. Like you're saying, like how are we disrupting their own like closed view of things, or like only seeing their own perspective. I mean, our world is training us to only have one perspective, right?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
My phone versus like my political viewpoints I have, and then so my algorithm is showing me literally one way. And that someone was like, do you know that this is what I see? And like, we're showing me what there's, and I'm like, whoa, like I don't see that.
Right.
And so it's like our world, our technology, like everything is actually teaching us to be narrow-minded and have one perspective. Like, yes. And so we're not like, we have a job to do with these teenagers to open up that perspective and show them like the world is bigger.
Yeah, because otherwise we're just guilty of giving them our perspective. I mean, it's so hard for us to see things clearly. We're just as guilty and susceptible as anyone. So we have to be aware of our own biases and have a bigger picture.
Right. It actually takes that's a great thing to talk about too. Before we engage the conversation, really, we need to name and label what lenses we're looking at it through as well. Like, what is the work you're doing for yourself to say, okay, what are my biases? What are the perspectives that I see? What's the algorithm that I'm seeing only one side of? So that where your heart is, putting your heart in check before you try to teach someone else how to do that, right?
Yeah. So we're doing something this Sunday. Let me hear what you think of this.
Okay.
I had 4 weeks planned for this series. I've had 2 former students come back already, and I have another one coming back next weekend who's been a missionary in China for the last 15 years. Which is awesome. but I had a week in between. I didn't know what to do. So I was thinking, I either want to talk about human trafficking or refugees. And I've chosen refugees. And I don't have anyone to come. So it'd be great if I had a refugee family or something, someone that's resettled here. I don't have anyone. So I found this experience that it's like a refugee experience you can kind of lead students through, where they have to make choices and decisions at 8 or 9 different places as if they're fleeing their home. So we're gonna try this Sunday night. Kids don't know yet. I'm still working out the details.
Yeah.
But let's just be honest. I could see myself doing this experience and then some parent complaining that
was my first thought.
Yeah, because one of the biggest issues of the election was immigration. Some parent complaining, you're just trying to, brainwash my kid about this issue. And yet, I'm not taking a side. I simply want to expose us. There's like 1.5 of the world's population. I've been looking it up. 1.5% of the world's population is currently in a refugee situation. They've had to flee their homes. We don't know what that's like. Kids don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like. Well, that would make an American political election irrelevant to you if you were running for your life, right?
Right.
And so, so we're gonna do that. Do you think I'm gonna get heat?
Well, that was my first question. Was like, well, have you gotten any heat from the conversation you've had up to this point?
No.
The first conversation.
They've been so beautiful. How do you complain about hearing from a girl who's been helping do cleft palate surgeries and restoring people's faces for the last 2 years?
I kind of meant your pre-election conversation.
Oh,
like
that one. I didn't hear anything about it. So my leaders liked it.
Do you have any leaders that are going to feel like you're poking the bear with this one?
Our leaders are great, but I could see that being a problem in certain contexts. Yeah. Again, we're not trying to steer any kind of political position. I'm simply trying to enlarge our viewpoint to see beyond American Christianity to what God is doing around the world, and to see that the church is the ultimate thing that God is doing. It's that is the ultimate story of history, is Jesus Christ and his church. So I just want to be faithful in that's the thing that our students are going to take with them from our youth ministry.
Right.
And it won't, like I said, it won't land with everyone, and not everyone will catch that vision, and that's okay. But maybe some will.
And the big picture is like empathy, right? Is like learning to think even a little bit about what it's like to be in someone's shoes. And that may or may not change your perspective on things. It doesn't have to change your perspective. You may feel more strongly on your perspective. Who knows, But it is to say it is teaching a different way of thinking. And I think that's what I desire for students, I don't disrupt one way of thinking about things, but we'll see, Steve. You'll have to report back on if you get any parent conversations. Does your senior pastor know?
No.
Oh man, you're just like not making this easy for me to answer for you, Steve.
That's the benefit of being here for 25 years. I kind of do my own thing without having to get approvals for stuff. That may not be the case if it's your first year on the job.
Don't ask permission, ask forgiveness.
Right. I'll let you know how it goes, Shannon.
I want to know.
Yeah. So, as we wrap up today, what's kept you going this week?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Whoa. Well, okay. I got excited about this morning, and it's right on topic, actually. Yesterday we dropped off food to like a food pantry at this place, that supports students and aged out youth in foster care, like current kids in foster care or aged out youth in foster care. What they're doing for aged out youth is like My favorite thing.
Wow.
They have like cooking classes and childcare classes, and just it like gives me shivers to think about it because it's really beautiful. And I've done a lot of research on aged out youth in foster care. So anyways, it's really cool. But so we were dropping stuff off from the church, and it was like a church drive. And my friend was giving me a tour of the facility, and she was just talking about the certain things they never have enough of. They never have enough shoes because shoes are too well worn for people to want to donate secondhand shoes or whatever, just different items. And this morning I said to my husband, I want to disrupt my kids' thinking at Christmas. And I just don't want them to think all about the presents they're getting. And so I just said, hey, let's sit down and guide them towards them thinking it's their idea to do like their own like shoe drive. And I'll have them come up with the ways that they can like advertise and do it. But we both got really excited about just, there's so much busyness. You know, we always say it, busyness of the Thanksgiving, Christmas season, but some years we do like, you know, what are you grateful for every day to try to shift my kids' perspective or whatnot. But we're excited. This year, we're going to talk a lot about giving to others. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to do that with my kids. So
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, in addition to having Hannah come back on Sunday and tell us about her experiences in Africa, she's one of my all-time favorite kids.
What? You're not allowed to have favorites.
I am allowed because she's the one that calls me when she gets back into town to meet for breakfast.
That's awesome.
So, last night at our middle school group, we had our adult part-time worship leader, Zach, and all middle school kids in the band. So we've been working towards that for a while. You know, he's been building that team, and last night it was all middle school kids. We had a 7th grade girl drumming for the first time.
Yes.
I know. Isn't that cool?
That's so cool. I want to be her friend.
She's going to be so great. It was just, I just love to see that. And especially at the middle school level, because it's just like, they're so enthusiastic and they feel such ownership.
Yeah.
And they're good too. They're doing a good job too. They're talented, but I just love that vibe. So
that's awesome.
That was a win. Yeah,
that's a win.
Oh, and actually the youth band was mostly high school kids, led worship on Sunday morning in big church.
Oh, that's weekend, very cool.
And did a fantastic job too. So yeah, big wins there. Yeah.
Love it. That's good.
Well, that kind of gives us some hope, some joy in the midst of not being at DYM this week. It's killing me, but maybe next year we'll get back there. But anyway, thanks for listening today. If you want to reach out to us, you can send us an email at youthministrysherpas@gmail.com. Give us a good review on iTunes. Share us on social media. Follow us on Instagram. We would love to hear from you. And I still have a few stickers. So if you email me, I will mail you stickers.
I will too.
We're just that kind of people. So anyway, it's great to see you today, Shannon. We'll be back again soon with another episode of the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast. Until then, see you all later.
Bye.